if you're an anime only, I can't help but just feel awful for you right now. Because it's like the amount of leaks and spoilers that have been just going around for the last 20 or so hours is honestly insane. Like, it is at that same level as the leaks that we got at the end of last year, and just to straight up say it, the Gojo stuff. You know, when Gojo decided to break like a Kit Kat bar, you know, those leaks were everywhere. There is just nowhere you could go on the internet to really avoid them, because the memes just exploded everywhere. Like, you saw them on YouTube, you saw them on Twitter, you saw them on TikTok, you saw them on Instagram, you saw them everywhere. I'm willing to bet you Facebook as well. It was all over the internet. No matter where you went, you were seeing Gojo memes, Gojo spoilers for JJK. It was everywhere. And just like how that happened at pretty much the end of last year for 2023, we now have that exact same thing happening for this chapter of JJK, chapter 267. Now, as you can see on the screen, this is just a brief picture that was taken hours ago, but JJK has just been trending all over the place, all around the world, all in, you know, the United States, and alongside of the name Nobara. And I think anyone at this point, you know, probably can put two and two together to understand what this chapter of JJK is about and what happened. Now, before we go any further, I do want to make sure I clarify a few things. What I'm going to be discussing today is obviously going to be leaks. I'm not going to be showing a lot of images or anything like that from the leaks because I don't want to be copyrighted, but I will talk about some of the content that was within those leaks, but also just how the community is currently reacting to them. For one thing in particular I do want to mention is the fact that there is only 4 chapters left. With the arrival of this chapter, chapter 267, that is set to release this weekend on Sunday, yeah, there is only 4 chapters left, and Gegi bringing back Nobara is quite the bombshell, especially since technically she's been MIA for about 150 chapters, so give or take a few. So it's kind of wild that he decided to bring her back of all times, literally right before the series comes to a close. Now, before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about a few things first. So, first off, I want to say that, JJK really has just become quite saturated with leak culture. I don't know when exactly it happened, but there has been a gradual shift for the last few years, I have noticed, to where leaks have become just so explosive that it's ingrained in the conversation piece of JJK. Now, I know I'm not obviously helping, I'm participating in that, obviously I know I am right now, but it's become so ingrained in the culture. It's pretty fascinating. Even though obviously it does harm as well, it is fascinating to me just to see how the conversation around JJK in general is so massive that it's went beyond just the chapter releases. For instance, like even the, you know, pirated version of the chapters, like the discussion around the chapters is way beyond that. And now it's discussion on just brief summaries and brief little, like, mentionings of what the upcoming chapter is about. And you just see full-on trending, worldwide trending going on throughout the entire internet over stuff like this. And it's honestly insane just seeing the overall conversation around JJK, and as much as people want to deny it, I really do think that at this point in time, I would probably say JJK might be the modern day Dragon Ball. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying that it'll be as popular. I don't know if it'll have, you know, the everlasting effect 20 to 30 years down the road from now. But what I'm trying to say is that the amount of people that are truly into JJK at this current time, and how many people talk about it, and you can't deny how many people talk about it. I mean, I'm just showing this alone on screen. It speaks for itself. There is a lot of love for the series, good or bad. And I think that in the next 10 years, we're really going to see just the everlasting impact JJK will have on the manga industry and just culture itself. Just like how Dragon Ball's affected culture, and it was really, we were unaware of just how much it affected culture until 10 to 15 years later. The same probably is going to be said about JJK once it officially comes to an end, not just with the manga, but also with the anime. So, yeah, it is something fascinating to me, just seeing how, like, the leak culture has just exploded so much, that it really just shows how many people are interested in the story, and continuously want to talk JJK no matter what content it's actually about. So okay, let's get into this chapter. Let's talk about what is going on here, and let's talk about, like, everything that, basically has happened with, it even trending on Twitter. You can literally see it here if you look to the right. It's trending. Everybody's talking about this. So, I guess let's get into Nobara. Let's dive into this bombshell first before I go any further. Let's really just discuss if this is good or bad. So, I know for a fact not everybody's going to agree with my opinion, because no matter what side I fall on, if I say I like the Nobara return or I dislike the Nobara return, half of the community is probably going to be upset with my opinion. That's just the truth. That's how anything goes, but I think because of this chapter and because of the current landscape of the JJK community, I do think that more or less the common thing to say that would be not going against the grain would probably say it is a good thing probably for Nobara to be back. However, I don't know if I'm off basis in this, maybe I'm living on a rock. I do think that I fall in the category that am not necessarily happy with Nobara's return, and I will explain myself in a second, but I do want to make sure I state this, that the content I am currently talking about is based on leaks and summaries. It's not technically a chapter yet. Not even the pirated version of the chapter, from what I'm aware of, is even out yet to read. So even if I wanted to read the chapter, I can't even read it, or at least I haven't read it. All I've seen is from the leaks that came out late last night, early this morning, and everybody has been reacting to. So the information I am discussing is information that is without a lot of context probably to the chapter, and visual context at that. But I do want to make sure this is stated. Regardless of context or not, I do not like the fact that Nobara returned, not at all. I am upset she returned so late into the story. Now, I guess let's dive into that. Nobara's been gone MIA for, oh man, like at least 140, 150 chapters. I don't know the exact chapter count, but she's been gone a long time, okay? And if you look at, how many chapters of JJK there are, I mean, I have it here, you can see the chapter trending, chapter 267. So you factor in, like, 150 or so chapters, give or take. That's a big chunk. Like, she's been gone way over half of the series. That is how long she has been gone from the current storyline of JJK. That's not even including the chapters that she wasn't even in to begin with. So, this is a character that obviously was a part of the main trio with Yuji, Megami, and her Nobara just appearing when there's only 5 chapters left. Like, for instance, remember this. She's been MIA. We have had no status update, no real mention if she's alive or dead or not. Just the last time we saw her was when she was literally lying here, like, dead. Like, this was the last thing we saw of her. Like, in the anime and in the manga. We didn't really know if she was alive or not, and Toto's explanation to Yuji in this moment for the fight, when he was, fighting, was that, this is just how sorcerers live. Sorcerers die, they live, you gotta carry on, you gotta keep fighting. And this was a big moment for Yuji's character development to take down Mahito. Like, there was a huge moment. Like, just, Yuji realizing his purpose in life or what he amounts to, etc. It was a really good moment that fundamentally changed his character forever after this moment with, Nobara's potential death. Obviously not death now, but you get my point. Now, I'm not saying her coming back is destroying that character development that Yuji obviously had. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is regardless if she was always going to come back or not, it feels really... It feels way too good and too happy of a vibe to have Nobara return in the last 4 to 5 chapters of the manga, when there has been next to no mention of her since this moment. So I think at that point, I think everybody could theoretically agree why people are genuinely, potentially upset with this, like why I am not a big fan of this circumstance of her coming back, because she is... Yeah, she had development and character development. Don't get me wrong, I like Nobara. She's a great character. But there hasn't been a lot more to her. There could have been a lot more to her, which is why for, 150 plus chapters now, people have held out hope that she could be alive, because she was a good character when, she potentially died. That there could have been more to her character. But obviously, now that we're at the end game of the story, there is there's not enough time to dive into Nobara's psyche, her character. Yeah, she's cool to have back to be with the main trio. It basically implies what, you know, Gegi Akutami is setting up here with these final chapters, is that it's going to be having a happy ending. For instance, Megami, Nobara, and also Yuji will be back together again and living happy together as friends. That is at the very least what the current chapter implies, that JJK will end on a very happy-go-lucky note. And at the end of the day, I know JJK is in Weekly Shonen Jump. I understand that at the end of the day, you know, it can't have all doom and gloom. But the very premise of the story of JJK has been the anti-Shonen Jump formula. It has tried to push back against always being the standard everything is good. You want to live this main character's life, because Yuji's life is miserable. It's hell. You don't want to live in Yuji's shoes. So it has always went against the grain. And obviously at this point in time, with the current landscape of JJK up to this point, it was setting up for a very bittersweet and dark ending. Either Yuji was going to defeat all his opponents, defeat Sukuna and everything, Megami was going to die, and Yuji was going to die like his grandpa at the end, or he was going to live his life on, you know, and be alone, or he was going to die for his friends to save Megami, etc. One of the less. Like, that's what people believed because of just where the story direction was going, or hell, Sukuna would win. But regardless, that is where at least the theme of what people felt the story was going to go. But suddenly, Nobara comes into the mix, and everything is going well, and it feels just like everything is just way too 180 degree with happiness. Now, I know, like, this is the ending, this is the climax of the story. I fully understand that. But I feel like Nobara coming back at this point in time, it's a little bit too late for that. Because, like I said, if you have hope and expectations for her to get character development, there's not enough time. Like, once again, with the arrival in her chapter, it was focusing on her arrival to help Yuji. There's only 4 chapters left, and Sukuna isn't even defeated yet. Like, I want to put this in perspective, okay? That means that with 4 chapters remaining, they're still going to have to finish Sukuna on the 4 chapters, like this 4th chapter, and then, depending on how that goes, then the 3rd chapter will probably be the aftermath of the fight of the characters talking, maybe with Megami or something, or someone dies, who knows, and then the last 2 chapters will probably be focused on epilogue. And I don't think there is enough time, especially when a normal Weekly Shonen Jump chapter has 18 pages. Now, there has obviously been exceptions where the finale has like maybe 60 pages, but most of the time you're not going to get that for every single freaking chapter for the last 5 chapters. So, and we already saw that the 5th chapter, one of the last 5 chapters, is a short chapter, a standard length chapter. So, yeah, anyways, getting back into the point, I personally know I'm going to get a lot of people that might not agree with me, I know that, but I don't like the fact that Nobara was brought back. I'm fine with her being alive after what Mahito did, even if it is like, whoa, like, you know, missing an eye, what happened to her, because it was always vague. But I think bringing her back at the end of the story is just such a massive whiplash to the very themes that's been ongoing for this entire Sukuna fight. Like, we have had back-to-back characters just straight up die, and Gegi has made it fundamentally clear that when a character dies, they're gone. Like, if they're off screen, they're gone. He has made sure that is really cut and dry. But he decides to break down and do this for the ending. You get my point. So, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Once again, we'll have to see when the official chapter comes out. But as it currently stands, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not. I really am not, because it's too little, too late. I don't know. I understand Nobara's technique is a counter. Like, it definitely can fight Sukuna. Don't get me wrong. It's a good counter. But why leave her so pushed aside for, like I said, 150 chapters just to bring her back? And here's the thing. I want to make sure you also think about this. When this gets animated, like, for the anime, like, the final episodes, okay? Nobara coming back is going to be, like, probably in the last 2 episodes. Like, there's not going to be, like, any content Nobara at all. And then randomly, like, at the finale, like, the last 2 episodes of the story, potentially, Nobara is going to appear. You realize the whiplash people are going to have with Nobara appearing basically in, like, the last final episode of, like, JJK? Yeah, I think that will definitely whiplash a lot of people. But, I'm going to leave it at that. I wanted to talk about this. I saw a lot of people discussing this today. I saw a lot of leaks, a lot of spoilers. So it's like, you know what? You can't escape them. So, I might as well talk about it. But anyways, be safe, stay healthy. I love you guys. Chibi out.